When we have these conversations, we do them in stages, okay? Stage 1, witnesses. Stage 2, suspects.
What stage are we in?
You don't know what stage we're in?
No, could you specify for me?
Yeah, we're in stage 2. You're a suspect.
What's the story about? You know, what has Catherine and Mark found?
You know, it's an interesting one because the Algiers motel incident was such a horrendous incident of injustice. And to be honest, at the risk of generalizing too much, unless you're part of the Detroit community, it's quite possible that you don't know about it at all. And actually, in my case, I didn't know about the Detroit Rebellion whatsoever, which formed the backdrop for this movie. The Algiers motel incident resulted in the death of 3 African-American men at the hands of the police. And so it was kind of frightening to come across the script, you know, in 2017 and have it bear such a strong and unfortunate resemblance to the events that we've seen all too recently as far as police brutality is concerned, and innocent people of color dying, you know, at the hands of law enforcement.
So now we know Catherine Bigelow and Mark Bowl for these meticulously researched, you know, stories about real world events and you know, just the most extraordinary pieces of work. Zero Dark 30, you know, I mean, The Hurt Locker. Your character in this is not necessarily based on a real person. So I wonder if you could sort of introduce him for us. I mean, but, you know, certainly the incidents, you know, the behavior was pretty typical of what was going on.
Yeah, very true. I think what you said is exactly right. Mark and Catherine, you know, in their individual pursuits, but particularly as a duo, take a very kind of journalistic approach to their work. And so the main goal throughout this entire process was to do justice to the facts, and, you know, where there were gaps and where there was a lack of information, of course, we had to dramatize, but for the most part, we were recreating, you know, these real events. My character is a slight kind of anomaly in the sense that he's a composite of 3 of the police officers who were present on the scene. 2 of those police officers are deceased. One is still alive, but as you see in the film, they're not met with the kind of necessary charges that they should have been met with. And that, again, is something that's been echoed in the recent cases we've seen where police officers have effectively got away with murder. The question that I come up against quite a lot is, you know, whether meeting one of the individuals who forms the composite that is my character would have been helpful. And as it turns out, I don't think it would have been. But I just found that where I really kind of lacked knowledge was in understanding the socio-political context of the rebellion and what Detroit was like, you know, as a white police officer at that time. First and foremost, you're part of a police force that is 95% white in a community that's 40% African American. So the racial bias is just evident on paper, and then to learn about just how racially motivated police work was there, and the sort of antagonistic arrest tactics that were used, the tricks of the trade, you know, that allowed police officers to get out of situations where they would have acted unethically, and they were just commonplace.
I wonder, as an actor, how helpful it is to be surrounded by, you know, so many talented people when you're on set.
I mean, you know, there's a real double-edged sword factor, I think, in being surrounded by actors that talented, you know. I think on the one hand, I was grateful to be surrounded by actors who were just so trusting and committed to the cause of telling this story, because obviously I'm enacting, you know, a lot of violence and aggression against them, and I think they were just incredibly, it sounds like a cliche and something that's said a lot, but very generous, you know, when it came to those tougher scenes, you know, that required us to really sort of let our guards down. And then, unfortunately, you know, the performances are so affecting that sometimes their emotional response punctures through whatever veneer of your character there is, and it really affects you on a human level, you know. I mean, You know, each and every person in that cast became my friend, and you know, there were a couple of people that I knew beforehand. Jacob Lattimore, who I do unspeakable things to in the film, is one of my closest friends, and you know, when he's in front of me begging for his life, it's hard not to feel you know, incredibly impacted by that. But that just speaks to the power of his performance and the power of everyone's performances. I mean, I witnessed, you know, I think the most incredible ensemble I've ever been a part of, and maybe ever will. And of course, you know, Catherine has a lot to do with that in terms of what she was able to draw from us.